Welcome to this episode of Thrive With Us. Today I'm joined by Christi Gadd, licensed psychologist who has been with us since October 2024. Christi has a master's degree from the Medical University in South Africa, and she works with individuals and couples here in Dubai. We're going to talk about a very relevant topic, which is expatriate adjustment, given that we're here in the UAE, where about 90% of people, give or take, have experienced this transition at one point in time of their life. Welcome, Christi. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you for creating this platform for us to share our ideas and thoughts around all of the different things we see in our offices. I often find myself in my office thinking, if I could share this with someone else, it would be so brilliant. I would never because of confidentiality, but in this case I can.
Yes.
Give the audience a little window into my therapy office and what are the things that I see.
I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I know you and I went back and forth a little bit about what we were going to talk about, but we knew from the get-go that it would have to do with expatriate adjustment. So why is this topic so interesting to you?
Because it's me at this stage. It was a very unplanned move from our side. I never had any plans of... I've always said that I would love to go and live in another country for a little while for the adventure of it, but I never had the intention of moving and fully becoming an expat. And while I was practicing in South Africa, I worked with international clients. I've worked with many expats, and then the universe had my number, and now this is me. So September last year, the decision was made in June last year. By end of September, we were on an aeroplane heading to Dubai, and here I am, living everything and trying to practice what I preach in terms of how to make the adjustment a little smoother and a little easier, and on this absolute roller coaster of becoming an expat.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I think it is a very common experience for us to become interested and engaged with our own sort of personal journeys. And as we were saying earlier, it's something that resonates with a lot of people here in the UAE, and maybe something that people aren't talking about as much as they could. So one of our objectives for today is to talk about what that process feels like, some of the roller coasters, as you mentioned a while ago, that people might experience, and sort of normalize that, and maybe even make some suggestions on what people can do to aid the transition. So you've been here for under a year now. Tell me about the first year in the UAE, or in general. I think probably a lot of what you're experiencing here is not context specific. It's probably pretty general to the experience of packing up and moving over to a new place.
So I definitely need to start with a confession. I was very confident coming into this. I come from South Africa. We live in a multicultural context. I've worked with expats a long time. Some of my very close friends and family are expats in different countries. I'll be fine. I know exactly what I'm getting myself in for. Ha! You can be as prepared as you want to be on a cognitive level, but the emotions still completely catch you off guard. I think my experience was of feeling completely overwhelmed. Everything is new. Everything that you think you know. I have a million stories about finding a new brand of cheese, a new brand of milk. How do the grocery stores work? In South Africa, there are a lot of products that you call by the brand name, even though if it's not the same product. And now I'm in a foreign country looking for Domestos.
Okay.
I'm like, Domestos. Oh, my hat. What is Domestos in the real world? Because Domestos is the brand name.
So what is it?
thick bleach.
Oh, okay.
But then I type in bleach on the app and then I get the watery stuff and I'm like, no, that's Jik. That's not Domestos.
Oh my goodness.
Figuring out all of those little things. New cheese, new milk. Mm-hmm. I explained it to someone else the other day. It's basically like the first month. Mm-hmm. Everything that you started when you were 16 years old mm-hmm. in South Africa, getting your ID document, yes. getting your driver's license, all of those things, you do that in a month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of administration. And like you said, maybe for some people that are listening, it's like, oh, it's bleach, thick bleach, runny bleach. It's bleach at the end of the day. It's not a big deal. And okay, like in the grander scheme of things, it's not the biggest deal. But at the same time, all of those mundane things are what make up life, comfort, and familiarity. And so coming and feeling like I'm so out of my depth that I can't even handle a supermarket can be really, really challenging, especially if part of your identity is that and usually people that make the move to another place are independent, can be a bit adventurous, have some level of tolerance for risk and uncertainty. And here I am having a meltdown. It's funny you mentioned the supermarket thing because I'm not sure if you know this, but I'm an expat here, but I've also lived in 9 different countries over the course of my life. I've moved around a ton. And before I moved to the UAE, I was living in Australia and I literally had a meltdown in the supermarket because it was like 4:58 p.m. I'm like in the central business district, so like downtown. I walk in to kind of explore. I'm like, let me get a sense of, things and how we operate over here. I pick up a package of like minced meat. The way that it was labeled, I did not understand at all. It was super confusing. And then all of a sudden, I either had someone tell me or heard a message being like, we're about to close. And I just dropped the mincemeat. I sprinted out of the store. I went back to the apartment that I was staying in until my house was ready. And I just started crying. I cried over minced beef and a 5 p.m. grocery closing time.
Yeah.
I feel like you can relate to that. Maybe not that exact experience.
Mine was a plant.
Okay.
The first few weeks, I just desperately wanted a plant. I live in a high-rise tower. I'm used to living on the ground. I'm used to seeing plants and greenery around me all of the time. And we get here, but the budget is tight. And I say to my husband, I know this is so ridiculous. I know we can't spend money on plants now, but can I just have one? And it goes through this whole process where I order one and it's going to come and it's just going to bring so much relief, and something goes wrong with the phone number and 2 weeks later it's still not there. 2 weeks delivery in Dubai. That's strange.
It really is.
Something's wrong. Mm-hmm. We finally get it sorted out. The plant is going to be delivered. I'm so excited. It's a Friday evening just before we're going out to meet some friends. The plant gets delivered. I take the scissor, I cut it open. It's plastic. Oh! I had a meltdown about a plastic plant. And at that moment, I was like, I'm not sure whether I need to throw this out the window. Ooh, that might get me a fine.
Probably not the way to go.
Whether I'm going to send it back or whether I'm going to keep it as a battle scar.
And what won at the end? What did you do?
I sent it back.
Okay.
I did not need to be reminded of that moment all of the time.
Yep.
But then my husband went, okay, he thinks we need to take a trip to IKEA tomorrow and just go and get one and just make this happen. And that was a big turning point for us in terms of going, yes, we need to be responsible. Yes, we need to settle in. Yes, we need to do all of the responsible things. But if we keep on depriving ourselves and we don't feel like we're also living a little, then that makes it worse.
Absolutely. And I think what's really important, what you were referencing as well, is that, okay, we've made this decision to move. We're looking forward to it. We know it's going to be difficult, but the reality is we're setting up home away from home, whether it's meant to be temporary, whether it's meant to be permanent. And a plant can look just like a plant, but for you, it was a sliver of that home and that comfort and that familiarity, and it meant so much more. So indulging and taking care of yourself and recognizing that something has deeper meaning and value than what it might look like to other people is a really important part of the adjustment process.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like in couples work, when we're arguing about the towel on the floor, it's not really about the towel on the floor. So I think that's my first tip, is grieve. Cry your heart out. Grieve every small little loss. Embrace it. As just because you chose this and you are excited about this decision doesn't mean that it doesn't also come with a lot of heartbreak and a lot of things you leave behind and grieve. But also celebrate every little win and every little adjustment. The first day I got my EID, the whole family got photos of me with a ridiculous grin on my face that now I've done it. The first day of work, my family and friends got play-by-plays of the whole journey of what that was. My most recent win that I'm celebrating this weekend is I finally converted my laptop's charger from a South African plug to a UAE plug.
Sounds like someone's committed now.
If you bought the plug, then you know you're in.
Yeah.
So it is those small things that you need. The small things are the big things.
Totally.
And it's not just about the plug. It's about, I'm settling. I've got this. I feel more settled because I have the plug that matches the country. I'm not walking around with my South African plug and my travel adapter and.
Exactly. It feels less makeshift, less temporary, more permanent. And I think that that's a very important thing for people to be aware of. And you were saying before about allowing yourself the chance and the space to grieve and to process. And that is going to look like a lot of different things. There's going to be high highs, there's going to be low lows. But the use of the word grief was interesting for me because what came to my mind is this idea that, you know, when one new chapter starts, another one ends. And there's so much there. You can hold at the same time the excitement and the conviction and the eagerness and all of these other bits while also pining for and missing the small comforts of home. And often I think is very important that people really miss is the people.
The people. It was my sister's birthday on Friday. I sent her a message to say, happy birthday, love you to bits. I usually don't see you on your birthday, but now being far away, just not having the option of seeing you on your birthday makes me want to be there even more. Your friends, your family, your sense of belonging, you've built a life there, and that is a lot to leave behind. Linking back to, was it Marsa's episode that was about the quality of our being related to our relationships. And I think that's such an analogy of the trauma that you put yourself through in some way when you become an expat, because all of your relationships that you've worked on stabilizing and building for so long now change.
They do. They change. And so I was sharing this with you right before we started filming this episode. One of my main areas of research in my graduate training was on newcomer adjustment. And so we looked at it for people that were migrating to Canada, where I was studying, longer term immigrants, as well as international students who knew that they were there for a fixed period of time. And what we have here in the UAE is a bit of a mix of both. We have a lot of people that they're coming over, they're expecting it's going to be a temporary, maybe a 1 contract, 2 contract thing. Although now more and more people are staying for much longer. And then we have other people who make the move over to sort of set their roots and make this their new home. But one of the things that I found in our research and in the literature more broadly that is essential is having social support, and having social support from different types of people. Obviously, you want to maintain your links and your relationships with people from back home, although that can be a little bit tough for multiple reasons, and we can talk about that a little bit later. And then you also want to make new support networks, and it can be helpful. You're coming from South Africa, South African born and bred, right? Probably helpful to meet up with other South Africans. Probably also helpful to meet up with people who are not South African and have a different lived experience and a different reality here on the ground.
I think that's the most thrilling part for me. On the one hand, I have one friend who we worked in the same practice in South Africa, and she works 100 meters from where I live now. And within the first 3 days of being here, she showed up at my doorstep with a plant, a little plant, and a chocolate.
Was it a real plant?
It was a real plant.
Okay.
It was real. It was brilliant.
So she knows you. She knows you pretty well.
She knows, and it's still alive. And I, 2 girls that I was in res with, we actually lived on the same floor when I was in res. They both, by chance, live in Dubai at the same time.
Oh.
And when I took off in Dubai, by the time I landed when I took off in South Africa, by the time I landed in Dubai, there was a message on my phone from one of them saying, "Hey, I see you're coming. Let me know if you need anything." So that sense of home and having someone who'll catch you and who will understand your way of doing, saving grace.
Definitely.
Also, having new people jump in, people at Thrive, people at the company that my husband works with, just absolutely opening up their arms. And in that sense, I often say I feel a little guilty calling myself an expat in Dubai, because I do think there's a little bit of a buffering that happens, because most of the people that you engage with have lived through what we're living through now. So if I'm standing in the grocery store and I'm looking overwhelmed and a little lost for a little too long, a stranger will come up to me and ask.
Yeah.
So yes, that has been helpful so much on an emotional level, building new relationships, getting exposure to new ideas, new way of doing things, even new ways of speaking English, because you might think it's so easy. I'm going to an English speaking country. No problem. I did not realize how much of our other South African languages had filtered over into me speaking English. This weekend we met with friends and we were having a massive argument about a traffic light in South Africa is called a robot.
Oh.
So if you speak of a robot here, no one knows what you're talking about. We're all speaking the same language, but it's not the same language. So even there on what you think you know, it's not the same.
Yeah, definitely. And, I really agree with your point about the adult friendships. And I also have experienced that, and I know many people that I've connected with personally and professionally have said that it's been easier to adjust to life here than in other places, because most people have been the new one, and people don't have the same built-in communities and networks that they sometimes take for granted if they were born and bred in the same place. So I would imagine that for you, or for someone that was born and raised and lived a chunk of their adult life in the same place. You have friends from way back when that you're still in touch with. Maybe it's a common experience for people to continue to live in the same neighborhoods, the kids to go to the same schools. There's this sense of community and continuity. But obviously when you move somewhere new, it's not there. And I told you, I lived in many different places. And I think what was always really hard for me, but not in Dubai, is making those adult friends, because no one understood that, like, hey, I just showed up here. I didn't go to school here. I don't get a lot of the cultural references. You're all friends with each other. You're friends with, like, your husbands are friends with each other. You have all of these overlapping connections, and I have nothing. But they didn't even register that because it was so foreign. So it definitely helps. And I love what you were sharing about people kind of connecting with that shared human experience of, you look bewildered. And I felt that way too. And you know what? I've been here for like 13 years. I feel bewildered sometimes still. And instead of just like ignoring you, I'm going to connect with you and just remind you that it's okay and you're not alone.
Yeah, I found it to be that there's this sense of belonging in everyone actually not belonging.
Yeah.
Like a shared sense of not belonging creates a sense of belonging.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, one of the other things that we talk about a lot in the cross-cultural literature is this idea of, okay, you're moving somewhere new. How are you going to interact with your society, the sending society, if you will, your home culture, and how are you going to integrate or interact with the new one? And, you know, there are many different frameworks, but basically it's like, are you going to keep your culture and only keep your culture? Are you going to just reject and abandon your culture and only take on the new one? Are you going to kind of prioritize your home culture and find your little enclave in your new place? Or are you going to try and integrate as much as possible? And the sense that I'm getting from you, correct me if I'm wrong, is that there feels like a place to do both. I want to be South African.
Yeah.
I can. Right?
Yeah.
There's South African supermarkets. There's places where people kind of frequent. You can gather. No one's going to look at you funny, I don't think. But I still feel like I belong here. And I don't feel like this outsider removed. I can go out and I can come in, and I can go out and I can come in, and I can mix those things together.
Yeah, that is absolutely my experience. And I think what helped a lot there is bringing my people back home. Well, back home. I have people across the globe, actually. So even there already, home is a relative term.
True.
But bringing my support system along. And what I found very useful is bringing them along in small chunks. Because the journey is so overwhelming. If I don't speak to someone for a day or 2 days or a week, so much has changed in my life that it almost feels too big to check in and to try and explain what the plant meant, or the bleach, or the cheese, or figuring out what do you do with your garbage if you live on a 39th floor of a building. So what worked really well for me is bringing my people along day by day. And as I was living and as I was walking, I was sending videos and voice notes. And, you know, social media gets a bad rap. There are a lot of cons in social media, but if you're living as an expat, there's also a lot that you can do to bring your people along. So to me, it feels like I am here, but even if I am here on my own, I'm not here alone, because my people know where I'm at and they know what I'm going through. So that's the one part. And I think the other part is also to hold empathy for, how did you call it, the sending people, and how hard it is for them as well. There's no way you can move to another country without leaving behind heartache, loss, missing, longing. And some of the research that I read said that the first few months are the hardest for the people in your country of origin because they feel the loss immediately.
Of course.
You were there, you are gone, the hole is big. And then they're grieving while you are in the honeymoon phase, exploring this cool new country, beach days, photos of the Burj and the fountains, and just living this crazy new life while they're grieving. And I think there it's really important to be able to hold both realities there and to make space for your joy and their grief at the same time.
Yeah, no, I think that's such an excellent point because, you know, as you were sharing that, I'm imagining people back home, like on the weekends when maybe you gathered to have a shared meal, all of a sudden that chair at the table is empty, or they're going on that run on the boardwalk without you, or, you know, they're having the coffee break at the office around the cooler and you're not there.
Yeah.
And it must be on some levels and at some times difficult for them to, like you were saying, hold space for the excitement and be asking. And, you know, when there's a big transition for someone, an outwardly big transition like moving country, we take up a lot of the airtime, right? Because there's a lot of new stuff and there's a lot of things that need to be shared. And what I'm hearing from you is not forgetting that they're having their own experience, and those two things can coexist, and there is a space to provide support for one another. The other thing that you said that I think is really nice is that, you know, when you call people back home, you know, you can picture where they're at. If they're like, I'm at this cafe, or I'm on this walk, or I'm at this hotel, you probably have been there, maybe even with them. When you tell them about your life, they don't really have much imagery to work with if you're not connecting with them on social media, sending the pictures and all of that stuff. And that probably gives them a sense of comfort, knowledge, and closeness, proximity, despite the distance.
Yeah, that really helps a lot. We had, every time we've now had visitors, it's they sort of feel like they're meeting someone famous when they see my apartment, because they're like, oh, that's where I talk to you when we video call. I've seen you post photos of this. This is so cool. So that definitely helps a lot.
Yeah.
Bringing them, the best way I can say it is to say bring them along on the journey and also join them on their journeys of missing you. And keep doing it. The research also shows that when their grief becomes lighter, that's when yours goes deeper.
True.
Because now they've gotten used to you not being there. You're coming out of the honeymoon phase, and then you're sort of out of sync.
So there's a mismatch, it sounds like, for a big chunk of the initial phase of an expat adjustment.
Yeah. By that time, they've settled in. They're used to you not being there. Now all of the shininess has worn off, and now you're also stuck in traffic, and you also have frustrations. And now your phone's not pinging as often as it used to. And then your grief starts deepening at that point.
And I don't know if you've been here long enough to have experienced this, but one of the things that I hear about and have also lived is this sense of, okay, I've been away from home, even if this is what feels like home now, for so long. When I go back, it used to be easy to slot back into life, and the conversations flow and the experiences are beautiful and the nostalgia's there, and you just pick up where you left off. And there will always be a sense of that with people that you're really close with and maintain those relationships with or have very deep histories with. But sometimes it also feels like trying to, what is the expression, fit a square peg in a round hole. And that's also tough for everyone involved, right?
Yeah. I think for me at this stage, it is when we go back to not be that person, like that episode in Big Bang Theory where Howard talks about going to space all of the time. I sort of feel a little bit like that when I go to South Africa. But in Dubai, and I just imagine people, they still tolerate me and enjoy my stories, but at some point, but in Dubai is going to get old as well.
Yeah, definitely. And especially if, like we were saying, you take up more of the airtime, which is understandable with any life transition. If someone is getting married or having a baby or starting a new job, the conversations are going to be skewed and hopefully course correct over time. But if it stays like that for too long, it can be problematic. And especially, I think, if people feel that there's this unsaid, implied, like, it's better over there, or like my life is better over there.
Oh yes,
I'm living the dream.
Don't even get me started on it's better over there. If you want to go, this is on my what not to do list.
Okay.
On my what not to do list is go in with the grass is greener on the other side, and everything is wonderful and brilliant and shiny and new. You will be devastated because every place you go will have some pros, some cons. There will be some wins and some losses. No place is going to be perfect and wonderful and brilliant. And I think for me, even there, it's important. I think the theme I keep coming back to is holding the duality. And the capacity to go, I love where I am. I also love where I come from. And there are pros and cons here, and there are pros and cons there. I can't have here what I have there, but I also can't have there what I have here. And it doesn't have to be the one or the other. If you integrate them as part of your being,
Exactly.
you can have both.
Exactly. And I think the other piece of it too, related to what you're saying, is that we as people, we grow and we change and we evolve. So Christi in 2024 might love these things in Dubai and long for these things in South Africa. Maybe in 2027, it's different.
Yeah.
It will always be true that there will be some things and some things, but those things are not fixed because we're not fixed.
Yeah.
And so part of it is like embracing that, like you said, the duality and the fluctuations and the change, which is much easier said than done.
Yeah, it makes me think of that Susan David quote that you posted this morning on your socials around a rigid response in a complex scenario is not going to get you what you want. No. Flexibility, adaptability. You need to be willing to reevaluate everything you know about this is how I do things. This is how things should be done. This is what is polite. This is what is rude. All of those things need to be reevaluated.
Yeah. And what you just said reminds me of something that I think happens to a lot of people here, which is, our identities, right? You mentioned before that you can hold South African and UAE, and you can sort of integrate that and hopefully have some sense of like identity coherence. Can be a little, again, easier said than done. But at the same time, what can happen for a lot of people is that one person prompts the move over here if it's in a partnership. Even if both people are super excited and they settle and all of that, but one person's opportunity or drive or move is responsible for that. And then usually what happens is the other person follows. I'm sure you've heard the term trailing spouse.
Yes. There's a debate in the literature. Apparently, trailing spouse is not the nicest term to use. I've looked at the other terms, accompanying spouse, etc. I'm like, I was a trailing spouse. Accompanying spouse does not justify the level of loss of identity, loss of independence. I had a fully established practice with a fully established brand in South Africa, and there was massive loss in that and letting go. with that. I think when we came here, we said the first 2 months I won't work, we'll just settle in. I managed it for 3 weeks. And I was like, nope. This girl's overdeveloped need for independence is not going to survive this much longer. And that's when you got an email from me in your inbox going, help, trailing spouse needing to be saved. She needs a job. She needs her own money.
Yep.
But it is a massive thing to go through. And I think what I found really important there is to make active choices that you don't just follow. Passively, but that you also actively go, okay, my husband needs to go there for work. If you go from a space of, I have to go, I don't have any choices, my joke with it is, well, no one's handcuffing you and loading you onto the airplane. There is an element of choice happening there, but it's a passive level of choice.
True.
And I think that sets you up for a lot of misery and resentment afterwards, because then the towel on the floor is going to become, but you brought me here. You made me come. You put me through all of this suffering. So I think there it's incredibly important that if you are the following partner, to make active choices that are not just in the relationship's best interest, but also in your best interest. Yes, this might not have been my first choice, but oh my hat, I am going to make the best of it. What can I get out of it? I love traveling. Hey, I'm living in a new country where I am so close to many travel destinations. In terms of my career, yes, it was a devastating loss, letting go of a practice that I had built over 12 years and starting from scratch as a nobody in a new system where nobody knows you. But it also gives me a completely different level of exposure. What I'm learning in terms of different people, different presenting problems, different kinds of challenges, that benefits me. So this is definitely not just something that I'm doing for the marriage or for the relationship or for my husband, because then something is going to come and bite you later on in terms of resentment.
Definitely. And there's so many things that you shared there that I think probably will resonate with a lot of people who have lived this experience. I agree. Trailing spouse doesn't sound like a very nice term. I appreciate the sentiment behind accompanying partner. But as you were saying, that kind of minimizes the idea that often, I mean, it's very rare for two people to have two job opportunities that are perfectly attractive at exactly the same time and make the decision and go. Like, I don't know anyone that has had it line up perfectly like that. So one person is always at least a step behind. And what happens, I was thinking about what you were referencing with your loved ones back home. The trailing partner gets here and their partner is leaving the house every day, going to work, experiencing all the new and shiny, having interactions. There's an inbuilt social support network through the new workplace or environment that brought them here. And if you're still figuring out what your next steps are, you're like left also behind at home. Right? And that resentment over the towel and so many other things is definitely going to be there. But I really appreciate what you said, because it reminded me of our earlier conversation point, which is when one door closes, another one opens, and you do have power and agency and the ability to make choices. And it can be a pivot, but an opportunity for growth and for development.
Absolutely. I think if you go in from a passive position, you set yourself up for some significant relationship difficulties later on. And it's a lot easier if you go in as an active participant rather than a passive follower.
And then if you're someone who, whether you were, and let's take the scenario, which I think is more common statistically, that the female is the trailing partner, right? So if you are coming over here like yourself and a person who is used to working outside of the house, and all of a sudden now you're not. Because a lot of times people will also time it in their family life cycle where, you know, there's young children, the family is growing, and it's like a little bit of like a career break at the same time. So many elements of who you are and what you're used to are totally disrupted. Even if you go from, you know, being someone who works outside the home there and then having a job outside the home here, it's still maybe in a new industry, it's in a new context, and you don't recognize yourself. And what does it feel like when you don't recognize yourself? And then what are some of the implications of that?
Yeah, I've always worked. I've always, and I love my career. I don't do it as a job. I do it because I love it. I've always worked. And then we get here, and how the visa system works is I'm on my husband's visa and I get my ID and it says housewife.
Yeah.
That's never been part of my identity. It's a new part that I found because for the first few weeks I did the washing and scrubbed the cabinets and did all of those things to settle. And one of my friends helped me beautifully with a reframe to say, you're a homemaker. And I'm like, yes, that was how I found meaning in the first while I wasn't working, that I'm a homemaker at this stage. And it's not... It wasn't on the cards for me. I had never planned this. And here I am with this new identity of not earning an income, being financially dependent on someone else, which is not a comfortable position for me. And we had to make it work.
And this is where the bleach comes into play, right? If part of your identity is now, I'm a homemaker, this is going to be my sanctuary, I'm going to build something, we're going to create something new, this is what I'm going to be living and breathing every day. I can't find my bleach. No one even knows what my bleach is. I have to Google it. And still.
Yeah. And then my victory was there was a sticky mess inside a cupboard.
Yeah.
And I figured it out. I've got Q-Tex remover, acetone.
Look at the flexibility and problem solving.
And I think that's where I see psychotherapy fit into the process as well. I read this beautiful quote on social media the other day. Sorry to the person whose quote it is, I can't remember. That says, psychotherapy starts where common sense ends. And I think that's where we fit in, is when you have reached that point that I've exhausted my own common sense. I've now tried everything that I can in terms of this adjustment process. Reach out for help. We are here. We've all lived through it.
Very true.
And can really deeply resonate with what you are living through. And help with that.
And I think sometimes what happens, and I've seen this in other places as well, is people will isolate, whether they do it intentionally or unintentionally, especially if they're the trailing one, they're focusing on other people, or they're feeling a little bit stuck. They're not wanting to put themselves out there. Maybe also they're kind of more introverted or reserved or shy. They've never had to create from scratch a new social situation. And then it also sucks that on top of being your trailing spouse, now I'm going with you to your work stuff, and even my friends are from you, and then they get trapped in that place. So I think one of the things is, you know, push yourself a little bit to meet people. Most people will, even if they're not the right people for you, they will at least be able to relate to what you're experiencing. They'll be open to probably a little bit of connection. There's a lot of groups around where people are coming from. There's a lot of like interest and activity groups. There's a lot of places where you can find your new tribe, and it might be a temporary one at first until you settle, but not being alone and having an outlet probably is also really good for when that other spouse comes home and you're just like sitting waiting for that interaction all day, and he or she is just like interacted out. And all of a sudden it's like, you brought me here.
Yeah.
And you threw the towel on the floor, and now you won't even talk to me.
You're not even talking to me.
Yeah. And we say it with a laugh, but I feel like both of us have definitely been there, and it's a really, really difficult thing. And as much as, put yourself out there sounds simple, executing it isn't always so simple, but it is a huge, huge game changer.
Yeah.
Not just staying in touch with people back home, because there will always be a level of distance there.
Yeah. My advice is accept every invite. Everyone who invites you, go. In Afrikaans, there's a saying, beproef alles en behou die goeie. It means test everything and keep the bits that you love.
Yeah.
And I think that's been my philosophy. It becomes quite paradoxical if you go out trying to make friends. So what I find more meaningful is go out finding the activities that you love. Go to the music show, the art class, join the running group, the gym. Do the things that you love, and your tribe will find you.
Absolutely. And once you have your tribe and you have that sense of embeddedness and connection and social support, it makes the waves of that grieving the old life, embracing the new life a little bit more easy to manage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I've just got one more thing that popped up. Loads of self-compassion for yourself and your partner. Living the expat life is like taking the volume button on everything that irritated you before and turning it up. When you are in your old support system and you have a tiff with your partner, it's not the end of the world, because you go to this coffee date, that coffee date, that coffee date, and you had a tiff with your partner. If you are an expat and you don't have that support network yet, your nuclear family becomes your world. Then when you have a tiff with your partner, your whole world is
contaminated. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. It is really difficult, and self-compassion and reminding yourself as part of that, this too shall pass, as cliche as it might be, and the only way forward is through. There's another one, can be part of that self-compassion process. But when you shared that, what are some of the things that you had in mind?
Oh, just building the support system, and also just giving each other grace and seeing it as an opportunity, because just as you are building a new identity, your partner, your children are building new identities. So if you can hold that as well, that as much as I'm becoming a new person, my partner's becoming a new person as well, and that you can almost restart that relationship, to go with the Esther Perel quote of most of us will have multiple romantic relationships over different times, and if we're really lucky, a few of those will be the same person. And I think the expat life and that transition, it's building a new version of your relationship as well.
And it connects back to what you were saying about making active choice and seeing opportunities and having realistic expectations, acknowledging that this is going to be the way that it's going to be. The Christi or the whomever that got on the plane from my home country is not the same person that arrives, is not the same person a month later, 3 months later. The same would be said if you had stayed in South Africa. But maybe some of the changes, especially early on, will be more pronounced. And so giving yourself grace for that, giving your partner grace, seeing as an opportunity to build and create something new and exciting, albeit difficult and frustrating at times, can help with the mindset shift to help push through on the days that feel really tough.
Yeah.
And they will always be there. Even if you're coming here for the perfect job, you know people that live here, you love the place, you're familiar with it already, and this is not just about Dubai. There will always be tough days. That's life.
always. And to link it back to, was it Karina's talk on grief? What carries me is a Winnie the Pooh quote. Obviously, I'm giving it away. I love quotes. There's a Winnie the Pooh quote that says, "How lucky am I to have something so special that makes saying goodbye so hard."
Yeah.
And that carries me through the longing and the missing, because I would much rather be in a space where I have a life where it breaks my heart to leave the people that I love behind than I would have a life where it was easy to just pick up and go.
That is a really, really excellent reframe and nice quote. I'd never heard that before. And I hope that some of the people that were watching us today, can take a little bit of comfort in knowing that it's okay for these things to coexist. Things are going to be difficult. It's part of the human experience. But at the same time, there are things that we can deliberately do on a daily basis to ease the transition and lean into our new identity and our new relational selves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Christi, thank you so much for your time and your insights. I'm personally very happy that you're here with us in Dubai, and I hope you stay with us for a long time.
I hope so too. That's the plan at this stage. But you know how quickly things can change, but that's the plan.
Yeah. Thank you.